Hello and welcome back to Doctor Who, the cancelled years. In this video we'll be covering season 28 of Doctor Who, so let's get started. Season 28 would have been the first season for Richard Griffiths as the 8th Doctor, the second season for Julia Swahala as Rain Cunningham, the first season for Ian Fraser as producer, and the second season for Ben Aronovich as script editor. This season would have marked a new fresh start for Doctor Who, with a new producer for the first time since season 18. Ian Fraser wanted to take Doctor Who in a new and darker path while continuing what was set up in seasons 26 and 27. This season also would have been the debut of the 8th Doctor, as portrayed by Richard Griffiths. This Doctor would have originally started out more similar to his predecessor by being quite dark and manipulative, but later would have become a more approachable and softer character, more like his first incarnation later in his life. As there was a new Doctor, a new title sequence was produced, however due to budget reasons it would have been a remake of the season 24 to 27 titles. There would be differences however, such as a change in the colour scheme and logo, and a new theme tune being done by Kev McCulloch. This theme would have been a lot more harsher sounding and more alien than the previous one. And now, let's get to the episodes. The first episode would have been Last of the Daleks, written by Ben Aronovich. This would have been the first story for the new Doctor, Richard Griffiths. The story would have been set on one of Scarro's old moons, Flydor, where a foul exposition is going on as they hunt down a space shuttle that holds Davros. They have found 3 Daleks on the planet, which they have turned into machines then armour for Khalid mutants, and now act as slaves to the Fowls. With Davros, they hope to create an army of Dalek robots for them. A lot of the story would have saw the new Doctor and Rain trying to stop the Fowls before the worst happens and everyone ends up dead. The exposition eventually find Davros and they reanimate him. They begin to bargain with Davros. In exchange for his own private laboratory and no disturbances, he will create an army of Dalek machines that will serve only the Fowls. Sometime during the story, the Doctor and Rain are arrested, however Rain is able to break out and is sent by the Doctor to spy on Davros. In Davros' laboratory, Rain discovers that Davros is planning an attack on the Fowls by loading the new Dalek shells with Khalid mutants, which Davros himself has created using his own DNA and Fowl DNA. Rain tries to warn the Fowls about Davros, but before anyone believes her, Davros and the Daleks commence their attack. The Doctor and Rain work on a plan to stop Davros and his Daleks by setting the base's reactor to overload. Their plan works, however the Doctor and Rain soon discover that everyone apart from them has died. Before they escape, Davros begs the Doctor to save him, but the Doctor says his final farewells to Davros and his army of hell before leaving him to die as the reactor begins to explode. And the story ends with the Doctor and Rain returning to the TARDIS to go on a new adventure. The second episode would have been Night Forts, written by Ed Young. This would have been a horror in an old house type of Doctor Who story. The Doctor and Rain arrive in a forest at night during a rainstorm. They're offered shelter by a group of academics in their big mansion. During the night and day, they witness a series of deaths among the academics. The Doctor soon discovers that the academics are experimenting with time and creating a device named the Bartholomew Transactor, so they can send a message back in time to warn their past selves about misdiagnosing a deceased girl named Edie O'Neill. However, the interference with the timeline causes Edie to be transformed into a zombie-like state of limbo, and the Doctor soon realises that the misdiagnosis had never been genuine, and that the whole series of events were part of a time experiment conducted by the lead of the academics, named Major Dickens. Intending to correct the academics' mistake, the Doctor travels back in time to undo the damage, but finds himself unable to kill Edie and allows the zombie Edie to come into being. Returning to the present, the Doctor discovers that the academics were now all dead, and, theorising that the zombie Edie was responsible for the deaths, keeping herself alive through her own use of the transactor, the Doctor and Rain leave in the TARDIS. The third episode would have been Illegal Alien, written by Mike Tucker and Robert Perry. This story would have been set in London in World War II at the height of the Blitz, and would have saw the return of the Cybermen. The story would have been about Cybermen arriving in London during the Second World War and attempting to convert the population. The story would have saw a redesign of the Cybermen. This time, the design harkens back a lot to the Troughton era Cybermen, but done in a more unique and creepier way. The story also reintroduces the Cybermat in a similar design to the Troughton ones, but again more scarier looking. The final episode would have been Network, written by Mark Platt. This story would have been set on modern day Earth and would have featured the return of the Rani, as well as Unit with Winfred Bambera. The story would have saw the Doctor working with Unit to investigate a university that's transmitting alien signals. The Doctor discovers the Rani working in the university as the Vice Chancellor. Her plan is to create a biological computer virus that will corrupt all technology on Earth and give her the chance to take over the planet for herself. Eventually, the Doctor is able to defeat the Rani by destroying most of the virus and transmitting the remains of the virus into her TARDIS, which when she escapes in, sends her drifting through time and space with no control. This story was written in mind of being the last Doctor Who story, as the team weren't sure they'd get another season. Thankfully, this didn't come to be, as the show was later renewed for its 29th season. And that concludes season 28 of Doctor Who. A fairly popular season which set up the new tone of the show very well. So join me next time for season 29 of Doctor Who. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.